Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the Bad Idea Bros. So in the last few episodes you saw us taking on one of our favourite trails, Old Le Bons. Now, you know we've got a bit of a history with that track, and the last ride was certainly no different. Now, you might have watched the episode and it might have just passed you by without noticing, but I did smash the CRF a little bit.
You alright? That was a big down.
Caused a little bit of damage as I saw on trail initially, but didn't realise the extent of it. So we've fast forward a week or two since then, and you can see the bike's pretty stripped. Now, unfortunately, I had started filming this episode prior to this intro, which was the teardown of the bike, accumulating the new parts which you can see on the floor, and rectifying a few bits of damage that we had. So the whole front end was out of alignment on the bike, so that was a job in itself. But that footage was lost, so thanks to a hard drive error, I can't share that with you. So we're going to pick it up from here. Now, basically, the plan today is to carry on from where I've started. You guys are in for the fun part, which is fitting all the new parts to the bike. The bike is looking very sore and sorry it's for itself in the background there, but needs must. So let's have a look at the list of jobs today. Alright, so the bike's obviously completely torn down. All the plastics and fairings are off of it. Now, the main part of the damage from the incident was the fairing that lives in this area here, the engine cover. I smashed all the lower part to bits, and as you can probably see on the engine case there's a few scratches and marks. The bike ended up on that side, pretty much on top of me. The cowling for the radiator, that took a bit of a bump, and that's since been replaced, thankfully. The parts were pretty easy to come by, and to be fair, that's probably the worst of it. Now, I had a little bit of trouble sourcing the plastics for the bike. It just couldn't really get hold of them in New Zealand, so I had to look further abroad. And in doing that, I discovered that I could pick up a few other parts that I wanted for the bike. So, the goal for today is basically a bit of maintenance and some new bits. So we'll start with the most obvious, which is the engine crash bars here. Never really ran them on the bike, and I've probably been quoted as saying in previous episodes that I didn't think they were particularly necessary, but once bitten, twice shy, and all that. Another thing that I found was lacking with the CRF is if you do drop the bike, there's no grab handles on the back. So I've got this cage rack that does have the grab handles just there. So I'm hoping to improve on what I already had, because there's not much point, in my opinion, of doing the same thing over and over again. The handlebars, I've gone for R-Tracks. I run them on the Keyway, I run the fat bars, and they've been brilliant, so I thought I'd give these a run on the CRF as well. A few maintenance parts there, so we've got front and rear pads. We do have brake fluid and engine oil as well, chain service stuff, you guys have seen me do that before, but also a new air filter and oil filter, all genuine Honda. So guys, that's the list really. It's quite a long one, but should be interesting. I haven't had to do all that much on the CRF, but after a crash, bending some bars and breaking some bits, it was a bit of a necessity. So let's get into it. Alright guys, so we're going to start with the seat, which might seem a weird place to start, but it is the part that you spend the most of your time on with the bike. Now, I have no issues with the standard seat on the CRF at all. Done plenty of Ks with it, it's been really comfortable. My only gripe is this little guy here. Where I sit on the bike, I basically end up with my backside right there. Now, because I've got it off, I can basically pop these two nuts off, get rid of that, and that's one problem solved. So we'll do that. Once that's on, we've actually got the seat in the right position. I'll reattach the plastic for the back here, and then we'll do that cage with the grab handles and the luggage rack integrated. So guys, that's the first part, and we're going to get into it. Alright guys, so we're going to jump straight into the crash bars next. The mountings on these look pretty straightforward. So we've got these extended tubes which will match up with the reliefs in the frame here. There's a couple of 14mm bolts buried in the bottom of those. And then at the top we've got these two continuous rods which will, with the spacers, they will, I'm assuming, replace the two current 14mm engine mounts. Now there are spacers in between the frame and the motor already, so I haven't done these before and I don't rightfully know, but the only thing that really makes sense to me is that these would be wider than the frame and these spacers would allow you to make the gap up on this side of the frame because that's inset on this bolt. Not really amazing instructions with these ones if I'm honest, but I think the way I'm going to approach it is to crack the two rear bolts that are in here. These obviously do separate, they're two parts. Slide these links into those reliefs and then see if I can't get the bolt started which goes on the inside of these. Then what I'm hoping I can do is just swing the whole frame up and basically line up these guys and go from there. A bit of guesswork involved, but it is pretty straightforward, so I don't know, let's see what happens. Alright, well, as you can see by the clamps and abundance of random tools on the floor, that took a little bit of effort to get them on, but they are on and solid. The real fight, which you're not going to be able to see unless I can get some light in there. Okay, so you'll have to take my word for it, but in there, you can just see that nut and bolt. That was a bloody nightmare. So I was right, it does replace the rear engine mount and you do still use the original Honda bolt in this case. It just basically takes up a bit of space on the inside of these bars, but it's on. Looking a bit strange at the moment, to be honest, but that's because there's no fairings. Does seem to cover the bike nicely. I have seen other brands that also have an up tube from here that then go up to the mounting point on the headstock. I may get a set of those and add them in later. I'm not sure yet, but for now, that's another job ticked off. So let's move on to the handlebars. Alright guys, so that's got the right hand side all sorted. Throttle's on there, we've got the switch block is all mounted where it needs to be. Brake reservoir, lever, the bark buster, it's all there. Handlebars are set where I want them. If you look closely, get that out of the way, you can see that it's got the markings for degrees. When you're setting up the handlebars, it's always best to try and have the surface horizontal to the bike. That's just a personal preference for me. Some people like them rolled a little forward, some like them rolled a little back. Now you'll notice that the left side only has half the switch assembly. I've managed to refit the standard grip. Bit of heat broke the glue up from the standard handlebars and I was able to slide it off. Some new glue on that and that's now set and is on the handlebar solid. Got the lever in place and the last step. So as you can see, we've got the back of the switch here, which does correspond to this guy. And if you look at the back, there's a little dowel, which you can see is white. The reason it's white is I've hit that with a paint marker, and then once I offer it up to here, it'll leave a white dot somewhere on the handlebars, and that's how I know where to drill my hole for the dowel. So that's the next job. Okay guys, so that has all the hardware done. Everything went really well. A little bit of finicky stuff with the handlebars and obviously engine crash bars, but that was to be expected. So that's the fun stuff done. Now it's on to the service products. So we've got oil change and an oil filter, air filter, brake pads, and I'm going to bleed both front and rear brakes because the fluids is starting to look discoloured. And you know, better safe than sorry with that thing. So not particularly interesting. I'm going to breeze over that in this episode. There's plenty of other YouTube channels that have covered how to do these things. This isn't a how-to. It's just covering what's happening with the bike. So let's crack on. Well guys, there we have it. That's the bike complete. So obviously all the new plastics on it. We've got all the hardware, the racks, the engine bars, the handlebars, all the brake pads are changed, service items are done, so the bike's had a full birthday. I did also bleed the brakes off of camera, was going to film it but it was just a bit tricky, so better to get it done properly than to get it done half right and on film. But guys, it's been brilliant working on this bike. It's really easy. Honda is still making bikes that are easy to work on, so that's a very, very good thing. It's also very reassuring. But she is looking a bit naked with no decals, so that'll need to change at some point. But yeah, for now, we're calling it done. Guys, as always, I thank you so much for following along, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.